What's up, everyone? Mark here from North of the Wall Garage. Thought today would be a good day to do a couple maintenance items on the E320 CDI that I have here, as well as just talk about why I enjoy the car. I thought it would be kind of cool to do a half oil change video and just me talking about why I bought this car, what I use it for out of the 3 cars that I have, and why I think it's a great car for a lot of other people to enjoy at a very reasonable price point. So let's get into it. First things first, gotta back it in. I don't like to have the car front facing when I do work. I always have the front facing out towards the driveway in the house. I don't know. I just like the fresh air. It's better for me. That's how I always work on these cars. Gives me a little more room. The garage is pretty deep, but it's better to do it this way. Just in case you need a little extra leverage with a pipe or any sort of extension. Obviously, that's not really a concern here. We're just doing an oil change, but still something that I think is worth mentioning. So, backing it up. Also, probably a deranged comment, but I actually really like the smell of diesel out of this car. It takes me back to traveling to London as a kid, visiting my brother who was studying abroad at the time. Back then, and still to this day, Europe is full of diesel cars, much more so than the US. But you'd walk through the streets of London and there's just a smell of diesel, and it was a strange new place, and people were driving on the wrong side of the road. And as an 11-year-old kid, I thought that stuff was really cool. So it takes me right back to those days every time I fire this car up and smell the diesel. Always got to have wheel chocks as well. That's an essential item. Just doing the rear wheels here. So the E320 actually has really nice jack pads. So right under here is where the jack will fit in, and it pops the car right up, and it's really convenient. If I took the time to actually move the M6 out of here, I could really get the full bandwidth of the jack, but kind of hate moving the cars around and putting them outside where they could get crapped on by birds. So I'd rather just pump the jack a couple more times for the jack stands instead of move the cars out. So that's the problem. When you have a 3-car garage, you actually want a 4-car garage. And before I had this house, I had no garage. So I'd do it in my driveway. So for the E320, best place to jack it in front. I should say to put a jack stand is on the subframe, which is right. I'm being careful, obviously the jack is still supporting the car. Right here, you'll see where I put this jack. These are my dad's jacks. He says they're from Kmart from like the 1970s. So thanks, Dad. Now, jack on the other side. My jack stand, the other jack, holding it up right now. So I can be a little more gingerly here, but here's the jack underneath the subframe once again. Always best practice too, I like to leave the jack slightly under pressure, under hydraulic pressure, not holding the car at all, but under the car maybe another inch, just as a nice backup, just in case both jack stands were to fail. Obviously, we never expect that. You always want to be as safe as possible, and this is just a redundant measure to take care of that. So let's pop the hood and I'll talk more about why I like the E320. The E320 CDI it's actually one of my favorite cars that I've ever owned. The reason being is this car is what many consider to be the last true diesel that Mercedes ever made. And really what that means is it's the last diesel before they started adding AdBlue to the cars, or requiring AdBlue to the cars. So there's no sort of additives to this inline-6 turbo. It's pure diesel. It has a huge fuel tank because there's no AdBlue tank to consume room in that area of the car. So it holds over 20 gallons, and this car will do 700 miles on a single tank on the highway. It's just an absolute highway monster from a range perspective. And what's cool too is that I bought it with 186,000 miles on it, driven it a few thousand miles. I bought it last year. I actually replaced my Tacoma since it was kind of redundant with the GX. And I've replaced some suspension components, the front brakes, but I expect this car will go to 400,000 miles without any major work, and that's certainly my plan. And there's a lot of documentation online to support that. Going to do a few more things to rehab it, but I bought it for $6,700, so really not going to pour too much money into it other than just good basic maintenance items. All right, rolled over my handy dandy cart here, and whenever possible I try to buy made in the USA tools and parts, and this is a cart made by Luxor. It's all plastic, but each shelf can hold, I think, over 100 pounds. It's made in the USA. I think it was a little bit over $100, but I bought this a while back when I was kind of building out the garage in my work area. I still have a bunch of random items on here as a result of my recent brake job and suspension work, so I haven't put those things away yet, but love the cart. This is kind of my mobile workstation. Love having this piece. So I got to load up the cart, and the first thing I need is a T30 to take the engine cover off. So I have my torque sets. That's a 40, so I think this should be the T30. Let's find out. Yep, T30. Okay, first thing I want to do is take these 6 bolts off the engine cover. I've got a T30 on my 1/4-inch drive. I am wearing gloves. I've had some bad boo-boos recently, but honestly, it's just nice to keep my hands clean. These are not on pretty tight, so they should, well, that one's stripped to hell. Okay, all 6 bolts are off, so I'll lift off this engine cover here. Oh, don't tell me these are connected. There we go. Okay, this is where the cart comes back in handy. Just going to layer, oh, lost a washer. I'm gonna layer the cover right there, pick up my washer, put it into my, this is also a nice thing, grip mat, just kind of an organizer for random bolts and tools as you're actively working. But let's take a look. Here it is, the inline single turbo 6. The turbo's underneath the air intake down below. It's a really tiny turbo, but this thing cranks. Okay, for the record, I did have to take off that secondary cover to expose the oil filter right here, which is, now this is the most annoying part of the job. This is where I really wish I had a lift. Someday soon, like I'm trying to do that within the next couple of years. Got a few other financial priorities before that. Regardless, getting underneath the car now, it's jacked, it's safely jacked. I have 2 jack stands and the jack itself right underneath, so it's safe to get into the car. There's 8mm bolts holding up the rearmost belly pan on the E320. So I'm gonna take out one of them, I'll show one of them, and then do the rest and show you the aftermath. All right, underneath the car, you can actually see, here's the exhaust, and then beyond that is the pan that we have to take out. All right, just took out 1 bolt. Gonna start by, again, taking out these 8mm bolts across the belly pan. Drop the pan, and that should expose the oil plug that we have to take out in order to drain the oil. These are never held on that tightly, because I think the last guy probably just slapped these on, or the last mechanic. This one popped right out. Yeah, not quite. There it goes. Okay, I got the pan hanging down here. Just gonna get the last bolt up front near the jack to drop the belly pan. Really shouldn't call it belly pan. It's more like a carapace cover to expose the oil pan with the bolt, the drain plug that we'll have to take out. There we go. Okay, so the giant carapace underbody cover is off right there. I've exposure to the oil drain plug, and we'll get to draining, but really quickly, I just want to say the reason I also love this E-Class, the E320 CDI, again, we talked about it being the last true diesel Mercedes, but man, I just think this body style, the W211, looks so good. And yeah, I had the more pedestrian one. My friends make fun of me. They call this like the grandma real estate spec because it's white on tan. There's nothing really special about its appearance, but I just think about like classic Mercedes. I think of this, and the E55 AMG and the E63 AMG have this body style. I think are really special cars. When I think about filling out my garage with a 4th car, put a bend pack in, store one up above, I think, oh man, it would be really cool to get like an E63 of this body style or do something fun like that. I typically only buy performance cars with manual transmissions, so that's why I don't really have any AMG products. I think eventually I will anyways, but in the meantime, when I'm only filling out one garage spot with a sports car, I have to have the manual. Regardless, Love this body style. I think it's such a classic looker, and it's a car that I just have a lot of pride in owning. In order to make the oil flow out a little bit quicker, it's always best practice as well to ventilate the system. So here is our oil cap. The car has been off obviously for a long time, and I am just going to twist this off, although of course this is difficult to do with one hand, as is tradition. There we go. Okay, so that's just vented. Just gonna kind of tilt that off so there's a little bit of air going in there. All right, so looking under the side of the car from underneath the passenger front tire, I have my drain plug over here, and that is a 13 millimeter. So gonna get my oil drain bin out, put it underneath there, and then I'm gonna crank away on that with a 13 millimeter socket. That was close. Well, that continues to drain, and I'll show you what we're replacing it with. So this car actually takes a ton of oil. I've got 8 quarts in total. I'm using a liquid moly 5W30. This is what seems to be the oil of choice for all the E320 diesel enthusiasts out there. So that's what we're using today. I have a replacement oil drain plug and washer, so the old one can go. All right, so day 2, and obviously this is not a 2-day project, but for any of you parents out there, or anyone with a very busy schedule, sometimes a simple oil change just turns into a day 2 item, and that's the case here. Anyways, back at it. Part of the reason as well I had to reset and push this into 2 days was we needed a new oil cap wrench here. So I had one for the Toyota products in my garage, but I did not have one for the Mercedes, as this is a newer acquisition for me. So what you need if you're doing this job is a 74 millimeter by 14 flute. And I believe there is a little bit of play in there, but it's enough to get the job done, and you don't have to get anything too special. This was $8 at AutoZone, so pretty easy decision. Take the filter housing off. Yep, and that's the old nasty filter. Just letting it drip off for a second. And into my bucket here. Okay. Always good to clean up the goo after. These little shop towels are worth their weight in gold. Got another shop towel here. What I'm gonna do is just replace, or rather remove the filter from the filter housing here, and you just have to grab it directly with the shop towel and yank it off. So there we go. All right, so obviously this is garbage, this old filter. I'm just gonna leave it here so it continues to drain. And there's 3 O-ring gaskets here as well, and I'm gonna replace all 3. Those all came with my new oil filter. So you can see the white one, there's a middle black one here, and then a small black one at the end. The new filter came with 3 new O-rings. So first I'm going to remove the O-rings from the old housing. All right, taking a flathead screwdriver and just getting the O-rings off that way. Okay, so obviously all of my previous O-rings as well as the old filter are all garbage now. So I'm going to install the O-rings first and then put the new filter on. If anyone is also wondering, I'm using a Hengst filter. It seems to be a good OEM equivalent. No, Mercedes, obviously you can sell a Mercedes filter, then there's a MAN filter. Mercedes uses MAN. This is made in Poland. I have no doubts about this. People get a little worried about using non-OEM filters, equipments, whatever. Oil filter is pretty freaking hard to screw up, and this is made in Poland. It's by a very reputable company. FCP Euro suggests this as the option for the car, so just not gonna question that. Should be good. Anyways, loading this up now. Let's get the O-rings on. And then the small one. Okay, so I have the 3 O-rings on now. I'm gonna put on the new filter. Okay, this is ready to be reinstalled. So if anyone ever has any good tips about what to do and how to get rid of all the oil that comes out of this car, especially the 8 quarts, it ends up being so much. Let me know, because every time I do this, it's so ungraceful and it's just a total mess. It doesn't matter what car it is or whatever. Maybe I just need the lift with the really cool like oil hopper and then everything flows down into it. That's probably the best case scenario. Regardless, I just ditched my old oil, kind of put it in a container off to the side, made a little bit of a mess. Have a shop towel down on the floor now, and now we're gonna put the oil drain plug back in. So it's gonna be that copper washer on top of the 13mm plug. I'm gonna put it in hand tight first, and then I'm gonna crank it down to 30 Newton meters so it's fully installed. So here's the copper washer. Here's my 13mm bolt. All right, so that's hand tight. I'm just gonna do a little clean up with the shop towel here. I did have some, oh, there's a spider on the floor. Oh shit. Got him. All right, and then I'm just gonna wipe it off. And the reason being is too, because then you know about like leaks in the future and whatnot. So I always like to give it a good wipe. So if there were any leaks in the future, it wouldn't just be, you know, kind of residual stuff from the last change or something new. So I don't know, it just keeps the area clean and allows me to know if something new is going on. Handy dandy torque wrench. Okay, so the oil drain plug is in. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the oil filter, except on 25 Newton meters on the torque wrench, and get the filter and filter housing back in. So we'll just screw it in hand tight first, and then we're going to torque it down with that 25 Newton meter torque spec. This is where the extra room in the filter part's a little bit annoying, but I'm gonna make sure I have a really good seat on there. And then make sure I get my flick. There it is. All right, time for the fun part. Filter on, torqued. Oil plug underneath the engine, torqued. Now we're just gonna take off our oil cap, throw the funnel in, and put that 8 quarts of oil in. All right, starting off with 1 quart of liquid moly. And again, we're gonna put 8 in. I have 3 single quarts and then 1 5 quart. Here we go. Did my 3 small quarts. Now for the giant one, the 5 quart. It's gonna be here a while. Okay, all of our oil's in. Gonna put the oil cap back on. And that is it. So now, all you need to do is put the engine covers back on. So the 9 bolts, and I believe they're also at 9 Newton meters torque spec, but honestly, it's just a plastic engine cover, so who really cares? But you throw the engine covers back on. The annoying part, and sometimes it's a 2-man job, is the belly pan or the carapace. Putting this plastic guy back on with those 8mm bolts. So I got to get underneath the car, put that on. Then obviously just take down the car off the jack stands, lower it down, close up the hood, and take it for a drive. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it's a little bit different than what I normally do, but I don't know if there's anything that I normally do. I just sort of put out what I want to put out. But thanks for joining me and hanging out for a good wrench session. Check out these W211 CDIs. These things are awesome, not to be confused with the Blue Tech. The Blue Tech is when they started adding the AdBlue, and you had all the other restrictions that were associated with that. So the W211 CDI is the one to have, and this was only in the United States for a couple of years. I think it was 2005 and 2006, if I recall correctly. So someone can fact check me on that. They're great cars. They'll run to 400,000 miles without issue. And I love owning mine, so I'm gonna keep it rolling, keep it on the road. It's kind of my winter car, even though it's rear-wheel drive, but I drive it throughout the summer as well, and it's just a really fun car to have around. So at some point, maybe I'll throw in a bigger turbo or a bigger compressor wheel in the turbo, something fun like that. But for now, just enjoying this bulletproof Mercedes. Good old Mercedes E320 CDI W211 body style. You can't go wrong with it, honestly. So highly recommend. Got mine for $6,700. I'm sure there's even better deals out there. Anyways, hope you like this video. Like and subscribe. It really does help the channel, and I really enjoy seeing all of your feedback. So thanks for hanging out. Check out these Mercedes. They're pretty rad. All right, see you at the next one.